emotional intelligence, I think, is actually just what I learned very simply. But this idea of, being in tune with your emotions and being able to react to them, when you understand why you're getting angry, or you understand that you're about to get angry, and then, preparing yourself for how to deal with that. I was someone who, I get angry over the stupidest little things, things now that I look back and I'm like, what was the point of getting angry over that? Understanding, when you're in control of something versus when you're not in control of something, and how you react to that. I, learned a lot about how I could actually pay attention to this, and I could, if I'm not in control of it, then, you have to understand there's only so much you can do to be in control of it. But I learned a lot about, and grew a lot in the sense of being able to understand how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling, and also like understand how to get yourself to that place.
Thanks for stopping by the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. I'm the host of the show, Sean Dustin. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. It's good to have you with us today. There are a couple of ways that you can help support the show. One of which is, if you know somebody out there who would benefit from listening to the show or an episode in this show, send them over. I'd be happy to have them as listeners. Also, you can subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And if I'm currently not available on the platform you listen to, send me an email and I will try to get added to it. I have merchandise available now, hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and other items. This is another way you can help support the show, and the show will get a portion of the proceeds. You can find direct links to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, merchandise, and anywhere else we are online at the bottom of the show notes. Go to the Linktree link, and that will take you to all the ways to connect to the show.
So the last thing I have is the Facebook group challenge that I started yesterday, June 24th. You will have 30 days or 50 reviews. So the challenge is an iTunes subscribe, rate, and review challenge. And all of that, instructions, everything else are going to be in my Facebook group. And to get there, you just go to the Linktree, go all the way down to the bottom, and the tab will be my Facebook group. Go ahead and click that, sign up, and go into the feed. And at the top will be pinned the instructions on what you need to do. And this will be for merchandise. There'll be 4 winners. 3 will be for merchandise, and the other one will be an interview with me. Anything you want. You got burning desires, you got something you want to talk about, that'll be the time to do it. And that will be and your show will jump my queue. So if you win that, it'll jump my queue and be put out immediately. And if you're somebody who's currently waiting for your episode to air, and you happen to win that, you'll jump everybody else as well. So this is my first time doing it, so we'll see if it works out or not. We've got till July 24th, or 50 reviews. So hopefully you guys have fun doing it. Hopefully this is a good time. It's like I said, something I'm just trying, and we'll see how it works out.
In this episode, I'm talking to Tim Jahn. Tim hosts a podcast of interviews from all walks of life, celebrating the resiliency of the human spirit. This was actually a really good episode. We had a good conversation. Wasn't too long, but it was really there was a lot of substance. There was a lot of different things that we touched on, from co-parenting to dating, being single. He talks about his divorce and what he learned from that, and just it was just a really good interview. I enjoyed listening back to it while I was editing. Like I said, I'm not going to go through a whole lot. Let's get to the show. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today we're talking to Tim Jahn, and he is the host of We're Only Human podcast. And Tim, how are you?
I'm doing okay. This whole COVID-19 thing is a little bit surreal, and waking up every day wondering if it's a dream. Turns out it's not.
No. Are you social distancing?
Yeah, definitely. Go for a walk around my neighborhood and I see another human, and then I run the other way.
Spreader.
Yeah. It's this weird. I mean, I wonder how we're going to get out of this, because we're being so conditioned to like stay away from each other. It's going to feel very awkward when we start trying to get back together.
Yeah, it's going to be a what do they call that? A gradual process.
Yeah, I think so.
So I was talking to somebody today and I was like, dude, this sucks. I'm single and I feel like it's forced celibacy.
Yeah, I've been feeling similar. It's very weird to date during this. Very, very weird.
Well, it's weird to date anyways, because everybody's into, nobody wants to do the traditional dating anymore. It's like, all right, well, what app are you on? And, you know, let's deal with the filters, the pictures from 10 years ago, you know what I mean?
Yes. I have noticed that some people, the first question I have now is always like, are these pictures recent? Because I've definitely come across some where upon further research, it's like, oh, these are very old pictures.
Yeah, I want to change up the thing. I want to start putting on my my profiles like, hey, let's do a 15-minute speed Zoom. And
it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, let's do a little 15-minute intro. If you're interested in me and I'm interested in you, you clicked on me. So the next step is we're going to go to Zoom. We're going to have a 15-minute conversation. That way I can make sure you are who you are. I am who I am. No filters, no angles, no nothing.
Well, that'll work real well for this current reality we're in. I mean, that's all you can do.
Well, I mean, it might be it might be the new norm.
That's true. That's true.
You know, people don't, I remember there was a time when you could go to the, what's it called? The grocery store. And I guess you still can. You can still go to the grocery store and, you know, meet somebody in the produce aisle. But people are a lot harder to, approach these days. You know, it's not like it used to be. Nobody's friendly anymore. Everybody's got their blinders on and they're just trying to get through, you know, and get home, do what they need to do. So in a lot of ways, this has actually been pretty good for us to slow everybody down and go, hey, what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, it has been. There have been a lot of positives coming out of it, I think. You know,
a lot of creativity. I'm thinking a lot. I'm like, you know, racking my brain. All right, what do I need to do for this podcast? Okay, a Patreon. I got a merchandise. So now I have all this time to do what I'd wanted to do with it before. So
yeah.
So enough about me. We're not here for me. We're here for you. Have you gone through that with when you're doing your podcast, as you're feeling your way through, you know, being a podcaster and your interview technique and your style, and going back through listening to your edits or previous episodes and seeing, God, you know, I need to get out of the way.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I'm very critical listening back. Even when I'm editing, I'm very critical of everything that I do. But listening back over the episodes, I think I've been improving. So, and it's all the small things. Like I noticed I breathe a lot. Like right now, if I stop talking and then I come back in, you know, when I'm editing, I'll notice I take all these breaths. So I'm thinking, well, how do I take less breaths? You know, I listen to other podcasts and I listen to other spoken audio, and I'm like, nobody else is breathing as much as I am. So what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah. Well, the good thing, you can see that breath in your wave, in your like Audacity or something. So I usually try to, if it's a long one and it's like, if it's so small like that, I don't mess with it. But if it gets a little bit bigger and longer, I'll pull them out.
Yeah. It's definitely been something I've been paying attention to.
Yeah. All right. So, you're here for, one of my bottoms and life struggles, episodes. And so, I mean, everybody pretty much knows how I get my people. I go on I'll put posts out and people respond to them. So how we, you know, met, that's where it was. So why don't you tell me what your bottom of your life struggle is and why you're here.
Oh wow, that's a powerful question. um, I think a lot about that. I recently got divorced, so last year, we're in 2020 now, so it was in mid 2019. So that was, I mean, I guess in some ways it's a bottom. I mean, it's unexpected. It's a huge life change. I think in a lot of ways, though, it's not necessarily a bottom. It's, especially the way that my journey went, it was all around a positive thing. But I think all through that, I actually discovered maybe I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know who I as a person identified. What do I like? What do I not like? What will I do with my time? What do I want to spend my life doing? All sorts of existential questions, I suppose, that I never had a chance or never took the time to answer.
That's pretty deep. I did the same thing. I've had a bunch of failed relationships, and this last one kind of forced me to really look at my own behavior and how I treat people. And I asked myself, well, somebody asked me the question, have you ever been in love? And, I thought I had and I guess it really depends on what your definition of love is. But like when I had a kid, that is really what taught me what love is, because that's like this unconditional thing that it's like, if I think about my daughter and something bad happening to her, I start to get a lump in my throat, or she does something that's like cute and amazing. And it, you know what I mean? It's like, dude, there's just that love, that unconditional love. Like I would do anything for you. And then I started thinking back through my relationships, and I never felt that way about anybody in those terms. So then I started going, well, maybe I never even really loved anybody because I didn't know what it was.
It's funny when you ask that question, have you ever really been in love? I've never been asked that. Just hearing you say that, I started thinking to myself, oh, how would I answer that? But the very first thing I thought, I have 2 children myself. And that's the very first thing I thought was, well, I know for a fact, regardless of relationships, that's where I fell in love for sure. Because I mean, the way you described it, that unconditional love, it's such an amazing, horrifying, but amazing up and down sort of love that, you never really can. I was just there was a guest on my podcast recently, and we were talking about how that a child is really the only human that can make you feel that way. And it's really hard to describe if you don't have a kid. But I mean, even your strongest like mother-daughter relationship or father-son or any uncle and kid and grandchild, just any relationship, there's nothing quite like the parent-child relationship. That I think what you said, unconditional love, and just such a, I guess unconditional. It's so strong.
Yeah, it's almost like there's nothing that you can ask me that I would say no to.
Yeah,
literally. I mean, it's like, and even if you were having an issue, you were having an issue and you were being beaten up by your boyfriend, and you asked me to kill him, I would probably consider it. I wouldn't, obviously, but I mean, that is the level of love that being a parent is at, you know what I mean? And,
oh yeah.
And I know that there are people out there that, relationships that are where you feel that way about somebody, but I just don't think that I ever have felt that way about anybody as an adult. Now I know when I was younger in high school, there would be, and that's like puppy love, you know what I mean? But it's still probably the purest form because it hasn't been corrupted yet.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is definitely something different about the puppy love as you describe it.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That was a question that I had. I stumbled on, and then I answered it, and I haven't. I don't know if I'll ever find out. I don't know.
It's a great question. I mean, like I said, just thinking about that, I never considered that.
So you got a divorce, and it was amicable. You put here 16 years together, and I'd like to share my journey since the end of my relationship. Yeah. So what about the journey since the end of your relationship? What do you have? What did you discover? What have you learned? Where are you at with that now?
I discovered a lot. Throughout the process of separation and then eventually divorce, throughout that process, but starting before that, I at one point decided to start doing individual therapy just because it would help, start to process what this big life change could be. And I continue to do that to this day. But through that process, I was enlightened in a sense of just, starting to explore who I was as a person, as an individual, as an individual without the other relationships I had. I was a husband, I'm a father, I was a father, but outside those two, when I'm not a husband to my now ex, and when I'm not, spending time being a father, who am I, and what am I doing, and what am I doing here? And I was able to really get in tune with that. And I think that's something that people get in tune with probably pretty early on in life, but I didn't take that opportunity to do that. So it was something that came up through this life change, and it was something that kind of took me by surprise. But then it was really exciting. It was like, well, I was like this whole new person. Like, who am I? And then I started to really think about who I was now, who I was before, and maybe what I wanted this new version of me to look like.
Yeah, I mean that's great. Every relationship that ends. I mean, 16 years too. I mean, that's you're dealing, like, your identity is so enmeshed with that other person. You know what I mean? It's
we had started dating at the end of high school, so it was a long relationship, but also through some pretty developmental times in life. The end of high school, college, post college, those first couple of years when you're getting out on your own. So yeah, we very much, we kind of, the only relationship we really knew was each other.
Yeah, that's crazy. So was that like was your high school sweetheart? Like how many people had you been with up before her?
Little to none. Yeah, high school sweetheart. I mean, we started, dating basically senior prom, so it was at the very tail end of high school. So I always not sure if that's considered a high school sweetheart, but yeah, I mean, when you say about being, kind of meshed, together, or at least that's kind of the identity we knew, that was definitely the case.
Okay, so you didn't have much sexual experience with other partners before her?
No.
So I'm completely on the opposite spectrum of that. Like before, like I was having so much sex in high school, it was crazy. Like I would be considered a slut. You know what I mean? If you were to, how many different partners I had before I even, from the time I was 13 till I got out of high school. So I've always wondered about that. I mean, did you, when you get involved with somebody at that young of an age and you haven't really had a lot of experience with other people, kind of to figure out what you like, what you don't like, sexually or just in people in general, attitudes and stuff like that. Did you ever think that, like, man, I wish I would have waited, or I wish I would have had more experience with some other people, or was it just really not a thought?
I mean, at the time, I don't think it was a thought. I think, further on, maybe more in the present, maybe I've thought that once or twice, but I really do think that, I mean, all the different experiences I've had, I think, shape who I am. So I don't necessarily regret, oh, I should have went this way or went that way. Because who knows, it could have went that way or this way, and then, regretted that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we know what we know, and the path we took is what we know, but I don't, I look back at it all and I think it was all important, for me to learn from. And I think, even together, we learned a lot about each other. We learned a lot about who we were as individuals. And, it was an experience that is part of who we are and, contributes to where we are today.
Nice. And so it was amicable. You guys had a clean break. And are you currently co-parenting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we shared a divorce lawyer. So it was very amicable and clean cut in that sense. But yeah. I mean, my children see me. They come here every other weekend or so, and then I see them during the week and stuff. So it's kind of a split. They spend a majority of the time, obviously, living at her house, but we do a split, and yeah, it's very. We're still a family. We're just a different definition of a family. It's a different setup than it was before. But we're no less family, in the sense than we were prior to divorce. It's just, it's a new evolution of it.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm same deal. My ex and I, we co-parent, and I'm like 15 minutes away. So usually during the week, same thing. I had spend time with my kid or my daughter, and, one day during the weekend. So, I mean, it kind of rotates. So if my ex has something going on, and we didn't do any of the lawyering up or getting anything done in writing. And I mean, it could be bad. It could not be bad at some point down the road. You know how that goes, where, they try to use you can't see your daughter, and I don't have any paperwork to say, well, yes, you have to give her to me. You know what I mean? But it's been working so far. And, like now my ex works, is essential. So she has to work from home, and having my daughter, a toddler running around makes it a little difficult for her to be able to do what she wants to do. 'Cause, 3 years old, they're pretty needy. They need your attention all the time.
Sure.
And so I'm having to go over there during 3 days during the week and just kind of keep her occupied so my ex can work. So, I mean, it's working out. As long as we stick to her and not get into like our problems.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big key of it is, especially when you have children, just putting them at the front in the sense of, providing the best environment. And like I said, new setup for them as possible.
So what else did you figure out about yourself?
I learned how to recognize and kind of almost read myself. What I mean by that is like recognizing, emotions. Emotional intelligence, I think, is actually just what I learned very simply. But this idea of, being in tune with your emotions and being able to react to them, when you understand why you're getting angry, or you understand that you're about to get angry, and then, preparing yourself for how to deal with that. I was someone who, I get angry over the stupidest little things, things now that I look back and I'm like, what was the point of getting angry over that? Understanding, when you're in control of something versus when you're not in control of something, and how you react to that. I, learned a lot about how I could actually pay attention to this, and I could, if I'm not in control of it, then, you have to understand there's only so much you can do to be in control of it. But I learned a lot about, and grew a lot in the sense of being able to understand how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling, and also like understand how to get yourself to that place. This is a perfect example of the times we're living in now. Like I'm sure yourself, we're living alone for a portion of the time, a good portion of the time. And, living alone, I think is hard to begin with. But when you're generally discouraged from going outside too much, I mean, go outside, but not going to social places, not seeing people, that goes up and down, especially for me. And there are things I know that will make me, bluntly just feel better. I know there's certain songs I could put on, or there's certain activities I can do. I know if I can get my blood, go for a walk and get your heart running, or, so that it's just really understanding that, recognizing the way you're feeling, the way you're about to feel, and then how to react to that, and maybe even alter the course If I can tell that I'm going down a bad, if I'm getting angry over something stupid, then I can redirect myself or, prevent that from happening. And just like I said, emotional intelligence skills, I think that, I don't know how prevalent they are, but definitely nothing I was ever in tune with, and never had anything equipped along those lines to help myself as a person.
Do you know your love language?
I haven't done that yet. I've been meaning to read that book, or I don't know if there's a quiz or whatnot, but no, I haven't done that. I have suspicions, like I've heard the different ones. I have suspicions as to what I might be, but no, I have not done that. I need to.
Yeah, I got into some counseling with my ex, and they talk about the love language. And then as I became single, then, I would be talking to other women, and it would pop up in conversation. Do you know your love language? And I'm like, I don't want to hear about
I've definitely
that book.
seen it popping up on some of the dating profiles. Yeah, people list their love language, and I'm always like, I should probably figure out mine.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. My love language is right now.
It's being redefined.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, being single in the technology era and the dating app era. Everybody, that's how you meet anybody now. It's all on apps.
Yeah. I recently introduced to this world. Prior to that, my dating experience was a long time ago in a totally different world. But I'm really enjoying the dating apps. I'm enjoying this idea of finding warm leads. Like, we're all, you mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily normal nowadays to like go to the grocery store and meet someone in the fruit aisle, but even like a bar, I would much rather go on a dating app that seems to, finding the one that works for you. So if you found one that works for you, going on there and finding people who are literally looking for the same thing, right? Like, so it's basically like you're standing in a room of people who are all there to find people to date. I feel like there's and then you're able to connect and just kind of start off on the right foot. Whereas if I had to go to bars every Saturday night and just sit around, like try and find, I think that'd be so much harder, because there'd be so much more work to get to the point where a dating app already launches you off from. It's like, I feel like not half, but a good portion of the work has been done already, in the sense that, like, if you are on here, everyone else on there is looking for the same thing, a someone.
Yeah, you don't got to get through the cock blocking friend.
Yeah, exactly. There's all those other factors that you don't have to worry about theoretically.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a crass way to put it, but I mean, it's, when you go out, when women are out in bars, they're usually in like 2 or 3s or 4s, and you got to get past the gatekeepers to even get to the one that you want to talk to. And then, let's say you're starting to, mesh well with that individual, then, it's time to go. And they're always trying to pull them away from it. Oh, we gotta go. And like, dude, we're talking.
Yeah, and some of these, like I've been a big fan of the dating app Hinge. Some of these apps, Hinge in particular, the way they're structured, it really provides a nice natural way to get a conversation started. I mean, on Hinge, you can have all sorts of different pictures and, little text blurbs about yourself, but then the person looking at your profile can comment on any one of them and start a conversation. So you can start a conversation like about something, right? You don't have to just, text them and be like, "Hi, I'm Tim. How are you?" Like, you can just start with something,
Yeah.
which is so much more natural, right? It's like walking up to someone in a bar and you're wearing a Cubs hat and be like, "Oh, I'm a Cubs fan too. Like, what did you think of last season?" It's
yeah.
Whereas I feel like, in a bar, it would be, I don't know. I think it would be a lot harder. I don't know. I like having that, again, that we're all on the same page, ready to go. Let's, and then it's also nice for the elimination too. You can go on a first date, or you can just start texting each other in the app and then go on a first date and be like, all right, this isn't, we both don't want to waste each other's time. We're just going to hop back into the pool and see what else is out there.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm finding lately though is that now that we're in this new norm, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to keep people's attention because we know we're not going to meet each other anytime soon. So it's like, you ghost conversations really, really easily.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I used to get on the Hinge every morning, and because you get a certain amount of likes a day, so I would always make sure I used up my likes just to keep out there. And I noticed that ever since this whole stay at home lockdown stuff, quarantine happened, that I've had a few conversations. But yeah, I mean, we don't know when we're ever going to see each other, and I think everyone's just occupied mentally. So I've kind of stopped. I don't know. I haven't really been popping on there much. It seems kind of fruitless. Like I don't know, what we can really do.
COVID, damn you.
Yeah, yeah. We're
You're really
dating.
screwing up my love life. Or maybe just my sex life. Since I haven't figured out how to love yet. Yeah. So how long has it been since you've been divorced?
About almost coming up on a year.
A year? Okay. I've been separated or broken up with mine for about the same time. Maybe a little longer than that. And then maybe about a year and a half, I would say. Yeah, it's definitely, any kind of, and it doesn't matter if you were with somebody for 16 years, 6 years, whatever it is. It's always an inconvenient thing when you break up with somebody. It's like now you got to start everything all over again. Now I got to get my own place, because you're obviously not going to kick your kids out of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The starting over part is interesting. What I've noticed too is like kind of moving into dating and starting to find and maybe kindle new relationships is kind of understanding like what level of investment you want to put in, and then as you continue to invest, like what does that mean, and where what's going to happen. It's basically the more investment you put in, I suppose the more you have to lose, the more risky it is, and that's love. But kind of navigating that is something that I never thought about.
So investment meaning like the time investment of it, like the back and forth and the amount of time that it takes to actually like cultivate something to even get to that point of a first date.
First date's a given. I'm at the point where like I will always go on a first date just to see, like we're not gonna gain enough just texting in the dating app. We're gonna need to go on a first date. So keep it simple, drinks or coffee or something. But if you continue on, what are those various levels and what do they mean to each person, right? Like if you go on a second date, a third date, a fourth date, if you start branching out with the dates, maybe now you're doing more social things together, getting closer as people, maybe you're talking more often via text or phone or whatnot. Maybe you're starting to meet other people, it becomes this, maybe a birthday pops up and you're gifting each other or someone's gifting someone, and all these different levels that pop up and all these different milestones in relationship. And it's just like you start to think, okay, what are they, what do they mean to me, what do they mean to her? If we act on one of them, what does that mean for our investment in this relationship? And it's just just not having a lot of experience with a lot of relationships is just something I never thought about.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules.
Yeah, I mean rules, but then it's like, are there rules? Because it's really just subjective, right? Like that's so far where I've been kind of, what I've learned thus far is keeping an open communication is like just understanding together what those rules are, what they mean to us. What are we expectations? What are our expectations, and are they aligned? Because if they're not aligned, then they need to be, or else this isn't going to work out.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. Yeah, it's one of the things that, the dating thing. So I think one of the problems is with this is when you find somebody that you like, okay, there's so many options out there. All right. And I feel like a lot of the times people don't give each other enough of an opportunity, without distractions. Like if you and I are or not you and I, but if me and somebody that I met we're talking and, we've gone on a first date and, we're going to go on a second date. At what point do we pull off of that app or all apps? You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of people are just waiting for the next best thing. If you don't cut it off on these apps and give that individual your undivided attention and actually give them a proper chance without seeing what else is out there. You know what I mean? Cause let's just say, and this has happened to me. I mean, I've done this before and I mean, it's not the best. I feel bad about it, but I mean, the whole scenario that I'm talking about happened but I didn't pull off of these apps and I get hit up by somebody who's, maybe younger, better looking, than who I'm talking to originally. And this is super shallow. But yeah, I've stopped talking to that person and started talking to this other person. And that's not really fair. And I know that if I've done that, other people are doing it as well.
I've thought a lot about this. This is kind of an extension of what I was just talking about of what are those different levels and what are those levels of investment? And this is kind of the ultimate, right? When do you know that this is someone that you kind of want to go all in on, or at least you want to try going all in on. And you, like you said, you want to give them your undivided attention. You want to maybe, I don't know, they call it being exclusive or whatever the term is. And you're going to, they are your person. And how do you know, right? And when do you do that? And like you said, are you going to always think there's someone better out there? And where I've come to thus far, and I'm no expert on this, but for the moment, I've just told myself, you'll just know. You'll just feel that. You'll just know that that's something you want to do. And, until you feel that way, then you don't know yet. So that's my current evaluation.
I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to it. I mean, everybody's got their own levels of what they follow. I remember I was dating this one, lady, and she, around the third date, she called and we were supposed to hang out. And she's like, I'm just not ready to, get involved like this. And it's like, okay, well, the third date's coming around. I mean, it's pretty obvious. What's going to happen on the third date if we're hanging out, because it's just like the unwritten rule, third date, third date sex, and I mean, it sucks, but I think movies have put that in there. Have you ever watched any rom-coms and, it's the third date, stress?
Oh, I think in the rom-coms, it's usually the first date, isn't it? I mean, that's
well, I mean, there's an unwritten rule, the 3 dates, and it didn't come from a dating app. It came from something in pop culture. And so, I mean, that's good to me. I mean, yeah, it's always good to have the meaningless, one night stand that you don't have to, there's no, responsibility involved in it. I mean, those are always great, but I mean, it's at some point, I mean, those get old.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah. Dating. Interesting. So tell me about your podcast.
Podcast is called We're Only Human. Started it last fall, and the entire idea is just to celebrate the resiliency of the human spirit and kind of the roller coaster journeys that make us who we are. So I think, each of our journeys is full of resiliency. And I think that's fascinating because as a people, if you think about humans, we go through a lot of shit thrown at us, right? I mean, you think about from being a kid, just literally, falling off your bike and then getting back up and being fine and keep going. You don't even think twice about it up until you're an adult, and then, going through a divorce or going through a trauma of some sort. And we still go on, we eventually evolve and repair and continue on. And I just wanted to have conversations with people to explore that and to explore, how we got to where we are today, knowing that there was bumps along the road, and just sharing that with the world, learning those lessons and using the podcast as a way to learn myself, but then share it with others.
That's awesome. That's kind of like why I do mine. I tell people a lot that, I think my podcast helps me more than it helps anybody else.
Oh, I say that to every guest. I say, this is really just an excuse for me to learn from you, and then we're going to share this with others, because I do think it's important. A lot of the reason I was able to eventually end up where I am today and comfortably navigate divorce, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that helped a lot was hearing other people's story, that they had gone through a divorce or they were considering it, and that they came out the other side, and how things were. People close to me, people further away from me, all degrees of separation. But knowing their story and hearing it and just talking about it changed it for me. It made it more doable, and it made it more less of, this is me going through a unique scenario, and more of, oh, there's others that have done this. So, I certainly, I think a main reason I do the podcast is to continue growing as a person myself. But also, I want others to hear these stories, because they could be changed by them too, the same way I was by others.
Yeah, it's funny how this medium, or this, I guess you would say this medium, we're swinging back around to our grandparents' time, when that's all they had was radio and audio.
I know, it's funny, when I started this podcast, I did about a decade ago, I did a video, I called it a web video interview series, but I mean, basically it was a podcast. We just didn't really call them podcasts back then. And it was video, and I interviewed entrepreneurs from all over the world. I did it for about 2 years and did a couple hundred of them. And doing this podcast now, I started it and I just fell in love with it. And I realized, oh my gosh, I love doing radio. I've fallen in love with radio. And just like you said, I was like, I never thought it would be 2019 or 2020, and I'd be saying I've fallen in love with doing radio.
Well, it's definitely a different way. I mean, depending on, I think it really depends on how you listen to the content. When you have them, when I was in construction, earbuds, that's, straight up engaged in it. Passive listening is a little bit different, but when you're actually engaged in it, you're like a fly on the wall of a conversation,
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's interesting you bring up passive versus active, because I am such an active listener. I listen to podcasts nowadays, during this shelter in place, when I go for my daily walks around the neighborhood. I look forward to my podcast when I'm driving out to see the kids, or, whenever we get back to out of the home, commuting to the office on the L. I'm always active. I'll never listen to a podcast where I'm passive, because I look forward to it and I want to listen. Like you said, I want to be a fly on the wall in those conversations.
Yeah, it's great, man. If they would have had this years ago, I mean, they did have it years ago, but if it had caught on like it is catching on now, back then, dude, there's so many people would have been helped by that. And probably a lot of dysfunctionality could have been prevented.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great way to spread ideas.
Yeah, I think so. It's amazing. And the one thing I really enjoy is finding a show that's not by a popular person, just somebody, doesn't like somebody, no name, whatever. And you get caught in by their art, or maybe the name of the podcast itself, or however it is that you find your way to them or to that show. And once you start listening, you go from the first episode, and somebody's first doing a podcast, you can tell they don't know what they're doing. Most of us didn't know what we were doing. YouTube taught me how to do everything. And to be able to listen and grow with the host, not only as being able to host a podcast, but, their show evolves. You know what I mean? You come in with a premise and this is what I want to do. But as you get your episodes underneath you, and you get your wings, and you're starting to learn how to fly in this space, you grow. And as a listener, you're growing with that show and that host along their journey.
Oh, that's the best part of it. Yeah. I love how you describe that. That's my favorite part of it.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, I'm growing with you, and they become your friends, albeit it's a one-sided friendship. unless you're interacting with them, through social media or whatever it is that they're doing. But I mean, you come to look forward to hearing them. And it's like a friendship. It's like, it's crazy. Like you laugh, you get to know what their mannerisms are. You can tell when they're smiling because you can hear it in their voice. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just sentimental like that.
No, I think you're spot on. I think that's very insightful. It really is. Like you said, the way you said that you look forward to listening to them, that's absolutely how I am. Like I'm excited when I go out on a walk and pull up a new episode of one of my favorite podcasts. Like I'm excited to listen to it. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I never got that way about any radio program or maybe some TV, but I mean, not in the same way. It's not in the same way. Because I know that television is just, that's kind of, television to me is just a way to kill time. There's no, unless it's a YouTube video, but just like regular programming, I've actually really tuned out of everything. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I rarely watch, TV programming at all.
Did you not watch Tiger King then?
Fuck, man. Yeah, I watched Tiger King. That dude was hilarious. All right. And it not hilarious because he's funny, but hilarious because he was oblivious to everybody just thinking he was a clown.
You think he was oblivious, or you think that's just all part of it, right? Like he's a performer in the sense. So, he knows, but that's the act.
I don't know, man. I think the contrast of this flamboyant homosexual with guns at his thing with a mullet and just like he was always on, and you could just, I don't know what did it for me. What made me laugh? I laughed hilarious. Just super hard at some of the things in that deal. Literally, I didn't get any sleep that night because I turned it on at 11, the first episode, and it hooked me. I binge watched it all the way through. It didn't go to sleep. Actually, I didn't even go to sleep that night. I had to go and do something else immediately in that morning. And so the videos that he would make about Carol Baskin, and it's like everything he did was just super funny to me.
I loved his music videos too. Those were some quality content.
You know what? I found out that he didn't. I was talking to my ex and I go, yeah, and the dude had a pretty good voice. He could kind of sing, and she's like, it wasn't him.
I was wondering that because it did not sound like him at all.
No, it wasn't him. And the people that actually it was, they're wanting to get a contract now. You know what I mean? Trying to get signed by somebody.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then the fact that he actually felt like he really believed that he could be a politician.
Oh yeah. Maybe. I don't know if he really believed it, but he
was very convincing.
Saw the power. Yeah. Yeah. I think if anything, he saw the marketing power of it.
Yeah. I don't know. It was funny. I enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't like it, whatever. I think Carol Baskin, the whole, what I took from that whole thing, the whole feud between them, and you have all of these tiger people that are in the mix, right? My take on it is that Carol Baskin just wanted to eliminate everybody else out of the space so she could say that she was the only one doing the right thing while eliminating her competition.
Ah, yeah, that might be. I didn't think about it from that angle, but that makes a lot of sense.
You're doing the same thing. You have tigers too. You have people coming through doing no different. Maybe you don't take them. Maybe you're not doing the cub thing, or, like the one guy, I probably would have been that one dude, Jeff, whatever his name was, that had all the strippers in Vegas and taking the cubs up to the rooms and having all the women.
He was another
around.
Character.
That probably would have been me. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you.
If you had to pick it, you would be the Jeff Lowe of Tiger King.
Yeah, if I could figure out a way to spin pussy my way, I'm there. I don't mean to be so crass, but I'm pretty transparent. I don't hide I don't hide how I think very often. I don't know if I'd act on it, but yeah, I would have to say that would have been me. So, how long have you been doing the podcast?
I started it in November, so about 6 months.
6 months. Okay. So you're still kind of figuring it out, but you've done this before. So, I mean, it's nothing different for you.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting, like, kind of deciding to get back into this. And I started this time with kind of a, not on a whim, but I just jumped into it and I was like, I'll just figure it out as I go along. I'm not going to plan this out. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to organically see what happens. And I started to already, start to be like, oh, I remember this from last time. But I will say it is so much, there is so much more infrastructure set up nowadays for this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing my video stuff back in the day, I mean, distribution was a lot harder. I think there was less people publishing, but it was really hard to distribute. There wasn't as much social media. And I mean, video in general is a lot tougher. So sticking to audio, I think, was a good idea this time. But yeah, I definitely started to have some flashbacks to doing it before, and applying what I knew worked well then to now, and learning more. I mean, even in 6 months, I've learned so much than I knew even back then.
Cool. All right. Well, we're coming up on the end here. I got another one to run right into right at 4. So why don't you go ahead and plug all your social media, your podcast, anywhere any of my listeners can find you, if they so choose.
Yeah, if you just go to we'reonlyhumanpodcast.com, you can subscribe, grab all the episodes. If you're on Twitter, it's the WOH podcast. And then if you're on Instagram, it's We're Only Human Podcast. Active all over the place. But yeah, subscribe, check it out. Let me know what you think.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I subscribe to all your channels, and then I'll be putting all that stuff in the show notes as well. The only thing that I'll need from you is to shoot me a picture of yourself, email, so I can put it on the promo clip that I can give to you, so you can share this with on your platforms as well.
Sure, I can do that.
Cool. Well, Jeff, I appreciate, or Tim, sorry about that. I appreciate your time, and I wish you well on your podcast, and I'm going to be checking it out.
Cool. Thank you. Good luck with all the interviews.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Hang in there.
Yeah, you too, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the show, and thank you, Tim. I really enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed listening back to it, like I said. And like always, you can find Tim's information as well as my own in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Please, if nothing else, if you want to help me out, help the show out, subscribe, rate, and review. The freest form of support you can give. And it doesn't take very long. Also, don't forget to get on over to the Facebook group and join the challenge there. It's 30 days or 50 reviews, whichever one comes first. And the end of this is going to be July 24th. So there's plenty of time. Still get on over there. I only got 2 people so far that have who have entered this challenge. So far we've got 2 winners. Anyways, yeah, so head on over there if that's something you want to be a part of. And until next time, keep it 100, stay true to yourself. Everything else is just noise.